Chip, and today we're going to be doing a partial rebuild on a Whirlpool direct drive transmission. This transmission came to me, it would not spin, there were some defective parts in it. You can do this job too if you follow this video, and I'm going to list the parts list is going to be below, and also I'm going to include a link to a schematic that you might need if you're doing this job yourself. So anyway, let's get started.
Okay, we're about to rebuild a Whirlpool style transmission. We're going to put this neutral drain kit in it, and these are the tools you're going to need. You just need a flathead screwdriver, 5/16 inch nut driver, or you may want to use a 5/16 socket on a drill, whatever you like to use, just as long as it's 5/16. You need a pair of snap ring pliers. You're going to need a 5/32 inch Allen wrench, and I have one on a ratchet and a socket type arrangement. A small hammer, a thin putty knife, some oil resistant gasket seal. You may or may not need some gear oil. You can get it 85 weight up to 90 weight. You can get this at your local auto store. It's a heavy oil. Of course, you're going to need the replacement kit. It's called a neutral drain kit, and it's part number 388253 alpha. And while you're at it, you may want to change the clutch on the thing, because the clutch comes off with the transmission. Part number for the clutch is 285785. You can get these that have a replacement motor coupling in it, like this. If you have all this stuff off, and these come as a bonus to some of these kits, and they're real cheap. I recommend getting them and changing all these parts while you have the thing apart. So get all this stuff together and we'll get right to it. Oh, another thing you might want is a magnetic parts tray to keep all your spare parts in. So that's what I usually do. Here's the transmission that we're going to take apart. The first thing we're going to do is take the clutch off of it. I'll show you how we're going to do that. Okay, the first thing you're going to want to do is take this clutch off. And if you don't know how to take this transmission out, I'm going to link a video right up here where it's not a video about how to take the transmission out, but it is a video where I do take the transmission out, and you can watch it and see how it's done. So anyway, you take this guard cover off, and underneath you're going to find a C-clip, and you want to pop that loose. Just like that. First thing we need to do is take this retainer clip off, and the way you do that is you take your screwdriver and you put it right up under here, and you just pop it up. It slides up the shaft and out, and now you can take your clutch off. And normally you can see what color the spring is. It's going to be blue on this machine, but you can't see, it's all rusted up. But this clutch, you can't move it with your finger very well, so this clutch is still good, and the pads are good on it. So I'm not going to be changing the clutch on this, but when I reassemble that, it's the same way you take it off. So the next thing you want to do is take this cover off, and it's got about 7 or 8, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's got 8 5/16 inch screws in it, and you just start taking it loose. Oh, if you want to, if you do this often, it would be nice to fix a bucket like this. This is the way I fix this bucket. You see the oil in it. I just got a 5-gallon bucket from Tractor Supply, and I took some 2x2s, and I marked them out with a pencil, and I took it to my bandsaw, cut them out, and then used some screws and screwed in from the bucket side. And that, you can lay your transmission right in there. It's easy to work on, and when you need to dump the oil out, you just rotate it over, and the bucket catches all the oil. But if you're only going to do this once, I don't know if it's going to be worth your while to make a bucket like that. You can always find something makeshift to set it on while you're working. But it's kind of important to have it flat horizontally like this, because once you break the seal on this cover, that heavy gear oil will go everywhere, and it stinks like the dickens. Okay, from this point on, I like to use these gloves because, like I said, you're going to be dealing with that heavy gear oil, and it really stinks. My hands are dirty anyway, but I don't want to get that stuff on me because it stays with you like when you chop onions. You'll smell them for 3 days on your hands, even after you scrub them. Okay, now you need your little thin putty knife, and you want to just break the seal on this cover, and this cover just lifts straight off and off and out. Now this reveals the inner workings of the Whirlpool transmission. And what we want to do now is find this snap ring. And when you get that snap ring ready to take off, don't do it unless you put your finger right here on the other side of it, because I can't tell you how many of these I've lost by not doing that. See, I would have lost it then because here's the snap ring. Had I not had my finger on there, I would have never seen it again. Alright, this old gear has a metal washer on top of it, and you need to save that because it's got to go back on. And underneath you see all these parts. All these are parts you're going to be replacing. And now you can see this oil that's in here is pretty good because I can see through the oil down into the transmission a little ways. So I'm not going to be dumping this oil out. To do this, I like to take my screwdriver, and there's a little notch right here. When you turn, you're going to find this one bolt in here, and as you turn it, it's going to rotate the transmission, and you can take your screwdriver, put it right there between that pinion gear or that rack gear, and jam it, and then you can take this bolt loose. Now this bolt has never sees on it, and it's real tight, but once you initially break its bond, it comes off fairly easily. And once you take that bolt off, it just holds this plate on. This plate lifts right off, and you want to note on this plate, there's two ways that you can rebuild this transmission. Actually, there's two types of transmissions, and one type doesn't have these two holes in it right here. But this is the replacement plate. You'll see in a minute when I open the kit up. You want to get the plate that has those two holes. When you hold it like this on the right hand side, bottom, those two holes. Alright, now let's get our replacement. And the first thing I'm going to do is take my putty knife again, and I'm going to clean the edge of this thing up, always holding the putty knife going outward, because you don't want the old seal material to fall inside the oil if you're going to reuse it, like I'm going to in this case. But if a little bit does fall in there, it's not going to hurt anything. But you want to keep it as clean as possible. Okay, now if I was going to change the oil on this, I would just grab the shaft and tilt it right here, and it would just spill over into the bucket. But I'm not going to change the oil because it looks too good. And I do want to show you some things on this transmission. If you look here, there's some timing marks on it. lift the spin gear up. And if you happen to take this apart, under this shaft there is a round, it fits into a cylindrical hole, and there's a round plate, and under that round plate is a ball, and the ball fits in a dimple in the bottom of that hole. Then you put the plate on top of it, then you put the shaft on top of that. And when you put this rack gear back in, make sure these two marks right here line up with that one mark on the pinion gear. Right there, right there. So you want those to be in line when the transmission is, see, they're lined up. Alright, so let's go ahead and open our parts up. And remember, we're looking for that plate. There's two plates in here. This plate is not the one, so we can throw that one away. And if you look at this plate, sure enough, there's those two holes I was telling you about. So this goes over the top like this with these pins facing up. And what you're looking to do is you want to line this hole right here up, and it's only one way it can go. There, you match it up with that right there. There's no other holes anywhere around there that match up with that. So you're not going to get it wrong, but you want to match that right there. And you're going to be looking, it's going to come, there's two different kinds of transmissions. That goes in one, that goes in the other. This goes in one, it's the pink, and this is the blue, and the blue goes in here. And you can't mix them up because these threads are different. That's a skinnier thread than this one. So when you're rebuilding the transmission, you can't mess it up because there's only one plate that fits in a particular direction. There we go. And we're going to tighten this down. And you notice it had the blue on it. That blue is Loctite, and that'll keep it from backing off inside and damaging anything. Now there's no way to jam this on the other way out, but you don't want to just over tighten it, so you can hold it against it with your thumb and your fingers up here, and you can get that tight enough so that it's not going to slip. Now it's time to put the parts in. Let's get all of them out of here. So you have your plate installed, and you have these various parts here, and I'm going to put a link to how this transmission works down in the description. Okay, you want this flyweight. It goes opposite of these two. It's going to go on that pin, and when you look at this thing, each one of these is going to be marked with the word up on it, and that means you put that side up. You can't put it that way. It's got to put this way, that side up, and you want to put it down on this pin right here. Now this pin, or this part right here, you look for the word up in here, and I can see it right here. I don't know if you can see it, but it goes right here on top of the bolt that you just put in, and this little foot hits this tab. Now this is the critical part, and it's got a spring on it. Sometimes you'll get these kits and this spring will be laying by itself in there, and you have to reattach it to this part. And the way to do it, it has a little post in there, and that's the way it's put on there. And it has this part, it has this little post right here that goes down. It says up right here. So anyway, you can put that on there, and that spring, now that little post is going to sit down in that square part right there, like that. And this is a critical part too. Now these parts may come off of here. Also, there's a spring on the bottom, that black piece, and then there's this part right here, this plastic piece that fits over this, and you need to kind of fit that right in there like that. until it clicks, and you will put this gear down. And if you've done this right, when you turn this clockwise, it'll click and stop. You have to turn it at least maybe 10 times. And it stopped. So now we can put our metal washer back on and our snap ring. And again, you want to hold the back side of that snap ring. There we go. Now I've got my gear oil in this little thing here that I can apply it, and I just always wet the top of that gear and try to get it around the edges of it. And if I need to, I'll top that off a little bit. It's got a little shelf that actually has got enough oil in it. You can see, I can see that shelf down through the oil. So now these parts are no good anymore. We're going to throw them out. Then we're going to clean this up, make sure we don't get any trash in our gear case. And we'll take our putty knife again and make sure we have all our anything on here that may prevent it from sealing. There's some old sealant on there, not very much. Most of it stayed on the transmission. Yeah, I believe that's going to be it. And you're going to need a bunch of paper towels or shop rags. Very good. Now we're going to apply our sealant to our case cover. And we want to go to the inside of the holes because that's where the oil is going to be. So you just put a little bead of sealant all the way around to the inside of those holes. Got a little thin right there. Let me. Yeah. There we go. That looks good. And now we're going to put this back over. You have to wiggle it a little bit. Line the holes up. Reinstall it. And I can take these gloves off now. It gives me a little bit more dexterity in my fingers. And you want to tighten this in an alternate pattern, one on one side, one on the other. And after I rebuild one of these transmissions, I like to give that sealant at least an hour or two to set up before I tilt the transmission or reinstall it. But if you're in a hurry, I've been in a hurry a bunch, and I've reinstalled it without any problems. I didn't leave it in a horizontal position very long. this clutch is good. If you can't push it with your finger very easily, then this clutch is good. The pads have plenty of material on them, so I'm not going to change this clutch. I'm just going to reinstall it. If you were going to reinstall a new clutch, there's a plastic ring here that snaps into the clutch bell itself. Make sure that's in place. Then you put it on, and there's these little protrusions that fit down in the teeth. And then once you do that, you want to put your keeper ring back in place, and there's one spot on the clutch that has a hole, and the one part of that keeper ring goes in there. A lot of people have trouble getting these on. I've always had good luck because I start right there, and I make sure that first part's down, and push on the opposite side. I push it in like that. Take my screwdriver to the other side, and I push down and toward the shaft, and that got in there. And then you go to the next one and push down and toward the shaft, and it snapped into place, and that's on there. Next, you want to reinstall your C-clip, and don't forget this, because if you forget it, it will make all kinds of noise, and you'll wonder what's going on with that washing machine. There's two slots on either side of that shaft. They're hard to see, but I'm putting them on those slots, and I'm going to push it, and it snaps into place. And then all you have to do is drop your guard right back on top of it. It's got a little tit in it that catches that C-clip, and that's how you rebuild a transmission. If you found value with this video, give me a thumbs up. Think about a subscription, and I'll see you on the next one. Ship out.